When you think of hypnosis, you probably picture a swinging pocket watch, maybe someone clucking like a chicken on a stage. But what if I told you it's also used in operating rooms? Today, we're going to unravel the bizarre and fascinating story of hypnosis, all the way from a theatrical spectacle to a real modern medical tool. Let's figure out what's real and what's just smoke and mirrors. So that's the big question, right? Is hypnosis a genuine medical tool that has real, measurable effects, or is it all just an elaborate illusion? Well, the answer starts not in a lab, but in the pretty wild and flamboyant world of 18th century Paris. So let's go back in time. Our story really kicks off in the dramatic salons of 18th century Europe with this incredibly captivating and very controversial guy named Anton Mesmer. In the late 1700s, Mesmer was an absolute sensation. I mean, he claimed he could cure pretty much everything, from nervous disorders to blindness, using this invisible force he called animal magnetism. He got so famous, so huge, that King Louis XVI himself had to assemble a commission of the era's absolute top minds to figure out what was going on. So Mesmer's whole theory was that this invisible magnetic fluid flows through all of us, and getting sick was just a blockage in that flow. His treatments? They were pure theater. Picture this: patients sitting around a big vat of magnetized water, sometimes falling into convulsions, which Mesmer would claim was the fluid getting restored and their health coming back. Wild stuff. But Mesmer's theatrical show was about to collide head-on with the cold, hard logic of the scientific method. And this is the moment where all that magic really started to unravel. You see, this commission, which, by the way, included none other than Benjamin Franklin, designed this brilliant and totally revolutionary experiment. It was actually science's very first blind placebo trial. They told some patients they were getting the magnetic treatment when they weren't, and vice versa. It was a perfectly controlled way to put Mesmer's claims to the test. And the verdict was a complete bombshell. The commission found zero evidence of any magnetic fluid. None. Any healing effects, they concluded, came from the patient's own mind, their imagination, and their belief in the treatment. It wasn't magnetism. It was the power of suggestion. So Mesmer pretty much faded into obscurity after that, but the core idea, it didn't completely die. Decades later, a Scottish surgeon named James Braid took another look at the practice. He stripped away all the magnetism nonsense and just focused on the state it induced. He thought it was a form of sleep, so he coined the term hypnotism, which comes from the Greek word for sleep, hypnos. Now, Braid's work started to give the practice some scientific legitimacy, but pop culture just couldn't let go of the theatrical side, and that's really what created all the myths about hypnosis that we still see today. And this brings us to the big one, the question that I think everybody has, especially if you've seen a stage show. Are people under hypnosis just puppets on a string? Are they completely out of control? Well, the science says, nope, not at all. In one really famous study, participants were asked to dip their hands into what they were told was dangerous acid, and the result was pretty shocking. People were just as likely to do it whether they were hypnotized or not. What that showed was that the real power at play wasn't mind control, but social context. Basically, trusting that in a psychology experiment, they weren't actually going to be harmed. So we really have to separate these two worlds. Stage hypnosis, that often works because of social pressure and the fun performative environment. Everyone's in on the act. Clinical hypnosis, though, that's a structured therapeutic tool. It's a set of procedures focused entirely on suggestion. No swinging pocket watches required, I promise. So, if it isn't mind control, what is happening in a modern clinical setting? Let's peel back the curtain and look at how it actually works step by step. It's actually a pretty clear three-stage process. First step is induction. This is where a therapist guides you into a state of deep focus, maybe by having you concentrate on your breathing or relaxing your muscles. Then comes the most important part, suggestion. This is where ideas are introduced to alter your perception, like, say, suggesting a painful area feels cool and numb. And finally, you have de-induction, which just gently brings the session to a close and makes sure you're fully awake and alert. Now, it's really important to know that not everyone responds the same way. It turns out how hypnotizable you are is a natural trait, kind of like your height or eye color. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle. We're moderately responsive. Then you've got smaller groups of people who are either highly responsive or not responsive at all.
And researchers have noticed some patterns in the folks who are highly hypnotizable. They tend to be more open to the idea in the first place. They often have a pretty rich fantasy life. They're the kind of people who get totally absorbed in a good book or a movie. And they generally report more unique perceptual experiences in their day-to-day lives.
Okay, so we know how it works and who it seems to work best for. But what can it actually do? What's the real-world impact? Let's take a look at the evidence. And this is where it gets really fascinating. This isn't just something happening in the mind. It's physically visible in the brain. Brain scans have shown that when a highly hypnotizable person is told to see a color that isn't actually there, their brain activity looks remarkably similar to when they are actually seeing that color. The effect is real and traceable.
And these traceable brain effects, they lead to some powerful real-world benefits. For pain management, it's been shown to actually reduce the need for opioids after surgery by helping the brain reinterpret pain signals. It's helped patients with brain injuries improve their working memory. And for things like quitting smoking or managing anxiety, studies show it can be just as effective as more traditional therapies like counseling. But, and this is a really important but, we have to be clear about its limits. Hypnosis is not some kind of cure-all. There's very little scientific evidence suggesting it can effectively treat severe psychiatric conditions like schizophrenia. It's a tool, a powerful one, but with a specific set of applications. So, where does all this leave us? We've gone from Mesmer's magnetic fluids all the way to modern brain scans, from pure spectacle to actual science. And I think what we've found is that when hypnosis does help, it's certainly no thanks to magnetized fluids, but rather it's thanks to the truly mesmerizing power of the mind itself.